Welcome to the great state of Texas, where they say that everything is bigger and it's easy to imagine cowboys on horseback riding into town. But Austin has replaced saloons with technology and glimmering lights, so if you're looking to let the horses run, you need to find the right venue. Welcome to Circuit of the Americas, the world-class purpose-built Formula One racing circuit just outside the city limits, where Ferrari makes its triumphant return with Ferrari Racing Days and the second round of the 2023 Ferrari Challenge North America Series, a world-class facility hosting arguably one of the most recognized automotive marques in history. It's time to let the horses run.
Good morning from a very different looking Circuit of the Americas. If you were with us yesterday, we had sunshine and blue skies. Today, not quite sunshine, not quite the blue skies. It's windy. Hello, everyone. I'm Shell&AM, joined in the booth by Mr. Brian Till and in the pit lane by Amanda Busick to bring you qualifying, starting off with the Coppa Shell classes. So it's going to be a very exciting event to see who gets to be on pole for round 4 of the Ferrari Challenge North America, which starts off now. We are on the second round technically, but the 4th race of the season. We started off at Homestead Miami Speedway in March in South Florida. Conditions were hot, not hot today. They are quite chilly at Circuit of the Americas. Then we go to Road Atlanta for round 3 in the end of May, off to Montreal to play support for Formula One in June. Then it's Sonoma Wine Country for the end of July, Road America in the early part of September, and then a break before we go to the Finale Mondiale in Mugello in Italy, end of October. Brian, we are in your home state. We are in a place that's very familiar to you. You feeling like the accent's coming back out?
No, I feel like I'm in Columbus, Ohio, where I currently reside. It's 54 degrees. Shay, what happened to the sunshine and the warmth that we had yesterday? Circuit of the Americas is just outside of the capital city of Austin, and it is very, very cool today. Like I just said, 54 degrees and cloud cover. That is going to change the way these Ferrari 488 Challenge Evos handle around this 3.4 mile, 20-turn Circuit of the Americas racetrack. Turn 1, you climb 5 stories up to turn 1. Good braking there, obviously, because you're headed uphill, and then comes the fast, twisty sections. Turn 2, all the way through turn 10. The car needs to transition well. I'm thinking this morning in qualifying, 3 to 4 laps before you have tire temperature and pressure to get a good lap. One of the slowest corners on the racetrack, turn 11, leads you down the fastest straightaway. Speeds over 165 miles an hour in the Ferrari as you reach the braking zone for turn 12. And then another area where the transitional characteristics of this car need to work. 12 through 16, 17, a fast left-hand bend plunges you down the hill out of turn 19 to turn 20. Good run out of there, Shay. Makes the lap that you're on a winner, or it starts a winner for the next lap. 20, one of the most important, if not the most important corner on the racetrack. It's a finishing corner and a beginning corner for the next lap.
Well, we know that it's chilly out there, and anytime you come to a circuit where they have giant flags, you expect it to be windy, so you get to see those giant flags. That's exactly what we're being treated to right now with the Lone Star flying proudly over next to the tower, but it's only 12 degrees centigrade in the air. As you said, we're in the 50s. Amanda, just how windy is it out there on that pit lane?
I think you'll be able to tell from taking a look at my conditions in my hair as you were using yesterday, Shay. It's always a good indicator of what's happening down here. But you said 54 degrees, Brian. I don't know. My hands are freezing down here. Walking up in pit lane, you can see all the teams and drivers just bundled up. I saw Lisa Clark before heading out here. We kind of mouthed to each other and said, it's cold. But how that translates to the race car is we're going to have a lot more horsepower here today. So the ability to create these faster laps. But you hit on it, Brian, saying that it's going to be several laps into in terms of getting these tires up to temperature. I was talking to Terry Borcheller a little bit earlier. He was saying that also you got to manage the track today. There could be some spots in the curbing where there's still some rain or water that is collected overnight. So it's going to be a cautious qualifying session for these drivers. But yeah, if we can get some green flag racing in this qualifying up to a couple laps, expect to see maybe some of the fastest lap times we've seen here all weekend.
I think it's going to be a very different qualifying session what we saw yesterday, just because of what you touched on, Brian. All of a sudden, it's going to take laps to get that fast lap, not just the one and done like we saw for all 4 of our pole sitters yesterday.
Well, and here's the thing with the weather today. It's iffy. I'm looking at weather radar right now. We've got some strong storms about 40 miles to the south. We're in kind of a clear pocket. You've got a dry racetrack to work with. for the majority of the racetrack, as Amanda just pointed out. But you've got to be careful. You got to look for what we call weepers, where you get some seepage up through the asphalt of the moisture, because we've had rain here. But this is what's going to make qualifying so important, Shay. What if it rains this afternoon for the race? Track position at the start is going to be key. You want to be up front, eliminate some of that spray from all of the other cars. So right now, you got to go out there, be methodical about building those Pirellis up to tire temperature, up to tire pressure, and once they're there, you got to pounce. You got to get it done.
Well, and you hit on it perfectly, because if it's raining by the time the green flag comes out for the race, you want the visibility of leading. But also, this track was built out off the city limits of Austin. We are in floodplains. When it rains heavily on this circuit. So you want to be out front, because you don't know how much green flag is going to happen. So qualifying, you get the 1 point for pole. It might wind up in being 15 points for the race win as well.
Lisa Clark taking her time to try to find some temperature, slowly building those Pirellis up like we talked about. And she had such a great race yesterday. Came up just a little bit short, still leads the points in the championship. But, you know, she's looking for more. And what she's got to do is put yesterday behind her, and that's the challenge. And I always say to race car drivers, look, it's just like driving the racetrack. You're through the corner. It's back there. If you're still thinking about what's behind you, you're going to mess up the next one. And really, the races are the same way. She finished second. She wanted to win. Okay, that's great. We all want to win, but that's done. Thinking about it's not going to change it, so we're going to take the lessons that we learned yesterday and try to apply them today.
She's definitely thinking about what's behind her, because what's behind her is Dan Cornish, and that's who she needs to be aware of. Dan is chasing her in this championship battle. He's about 10 points back after yesterday's race, so he's there or thereabouts. But Lisa has all the pole positions this year. That's 3 bonus points. Think about it that way. That could have been a 3-point swing. We could be talking about a 4-point championship battle.
And I just saw Dan before he got in his car, and he still has a smile on his face, by the way, from yesterday. I think he probably has some cramping in his cheeks from having the smile on like long. But he said, yeah, it's going to be a challenge out there. But there is that confidence factor, right? I mean, anytime, whether you're playing golf, you're driving a race car, whatever, you have a good round, you have a good race, you have a little bit more belief, a little bit more confidence when you get back in the car. So look for him to really put pedal to the metal today and see if he can be a repeat winner as well.
Speaking of confidence in the car, Neil Langberg is a driver who's developing confidence in the car by working on a simulator. He spent quite a bit of time doing that with his coach, John Morley, in the off-season with his grandkids. He's working in the simulator. I think it's less work when they're around. It's more of an adventure with the family. But Neil, who races with the Race for RP livery on his Ferrari, is looking to get back up into that top 5. A good run yesterday in the race, but sort of fell back a little bit. Rain could help Neil, because the conditions are going to be unknown for everybody.
I think rain is such the great equalizer, and when you have car control and you know where to place the car, if it rains this afternoon, we'll talk about that in the race, about where you place the car. It's very, very different than where you place the car in the dry, but if you understand the rain and you can play that chess game diligently, deliberately, and delicately, then you have good results.
It's a lot of D's that you just threw out.
A lot of D's. Oh, that's a lot like my college career.
Oh, gosh. Jeff Nunberg is out on track as well. The Ferrari of Central New Jersey man is taking his time getting the Pirellis up to temperature. And this is what we're going to see on these opening laps, because the track is completely foreign to all the drivers right now. Yesterday when they left it, very rubbered in. Perfect conditions after so many cars, more than 140 Ferraris running around on it this weekend. Now we've had a night of some quite heavy rain, has to be said. I doubt there's much rubber out there to be found.
Well, and go back to, you get 2 sets of Pirelli tires for the 2 qualifying sessions of the 2 races. So you're probably going to use set 1 for qualifying 1 and race 1, set 2 for qualifying 2, race 2. So what you don't want to do, Shay, is go out there and be in a hurry, get ahead of yourself, spin the car in qualifying, and damage that set that you've got for qualifying that you're planning on using the race this afternoon. Because if you do, guess which set's going to go on? The one that you qualified, have 15 minutes of qualifying and 30 minutes of a race on, and those aren't the tires that you want.
Correct. And there are drivers out there who are thinking in the back of their mind, oh, I'm on dry tires. I'm not going to need these again later. I might as well throw down. Well, you might. You never can count on rain.
Well, find me a weather forecaster that's correct.
Yeah.
I always say that weather forecasting and baseball players are a lot the same. You hit 250 in the majors, you can keep your job. And it's like, I think it's the same thing about forecasting the weather. You're right 25% of the time you can keep your job. And especially here in Texas, I mean, in all seriousness, you've got the moisture coming up off the Gulf. We're not that far away from it. So you've got that subtropical moisture mixing with this cold air, that warm, moist air mixing with the cold. That's why we get the rain, and you'll see these pop-up thunderstorms.
Lisa Clark just encountering Dana Goodwin at the end of her lap. That was her first flying lap, 2:14.644. That is quite a bit off where we expect to see the cars. But again, we don't know what lap times to expect because the rubber that was laid down yesterday isn't there, but the temperatures are there, meaning that we should get faster cars. It's an odd combination.
It is an odd combination, and the temperature has something to do with it. The humidity level has something to do with it. The barometer has something to do with it as far as how the aerodynamics work. It's like flying an airplane. So it's one of those deals that it's a different race car all around. The drivers are going to have to figure out the racetrack, the race car, what that does power-wise. The wind, you talked about it. Now it's about a quartering tailwind down the back straightaway. You're going to arrive at the brake zone for turn 12 with another couple of miles an hour. That will change your braking marker. All of this you've got to figure out. You got to do it in 15 minutes, and we only have about 8 minutes left.
Neil Langberg is setting his quick lap now. Amanda, you've got some more intel on the great man.
Yeah, no, I think I'm pretty inspired watching that we're almost 7 minutes into this qualifying session and still green flag conditions. I was talking to Neil prior to qualifying and just asking what he expects out there on the track, from more horsepower in the Ferrari to grip levels. And he said, you need to talk to my driver coach. It's not me. So, Brian, I know you spent yesterday talking about just the importance of these driver coaches. How much are they at play here this morning in this qualifying session?
Huge. I would say huge, Amanda. I'm looking at the times that were the first lap times for every driver, well off the pace, and I can guarantee you that's a driver coach in their ear going, let's just take our time. And you've got that soft confidence voice in your ear going, let's just take our time, let's build our pressures, let's go see where there's moisture on the racetrack. This first lap, 2-3 laps, it's all about reconnaissance. Then we'll go. And so you've got that coach in your ear, just slowly building you up to speed. I think it's key. It's key with the entire series, but especially here in Coppa Shell&AM.
Well, we were talking yesterday to a driver and his coach after the briefing. It was Matt Dalton, who's being coached this weekend by Patrick Gallagher. And he said, honestly, I'm hearing Patrick in my dreams. Be smart, be smart, be smart, because that's what the coach does. He sits on the radio and reassures his or her driver that, hey, it's a long race. Qualifying, it's important, but it's not everything. Be smart. Keep the car safe. Dan Cornish being smart. Also now dealing with Dana Goodwin getting around him on his fast lap. Let's see, does it slow him down at all? Right now, the benchmark is a 2:12.801 from Lisa. Dan Cornish on his first gambit, a 2:13.692. I think there's still quite a bit of speed to come, though.
There is speed to come, and that did hold him up a little bit, but still the lap was considerably quicker than the one before that. And if you think about, well, why do these drivers have coaches? It's very simple. The best athletes in the world have coaches. Golfers who win the Masters have coaches that follow them along the course and give them tidbits. There was a point in time when, I'm sure that we all had a little bit of pride going, yeah, we know how to do this. We know how to do this. But the best in the business have decided that having that voice, that second set of eyes, that second opinion really helps you in any sport that you play. And I think it's one of the great things about Ferrari Challenge. You're mandated to have a coach, both because a lot of these drivers, the experience level that they have, but it makes you better, it makes you faster, it makes the racing better because you have people helping you make decisions. And I think it's one of those things that's so great about this series. It's why the racing is as good as it is, even with the experience levels as minimal as they are with some of the drivers, especially here in Coppa Shell&AM.
There's so many coaches to choose from.
I know, it's crazy,
figure out
right?
Who would be the best one. I mean, out of all of these drivers, you've got IMSA race winners, you've got Le Mans winners, you've got Daytona winners, Sebring winners. So much accomplishment. And they're all here to sit in your ear and say, hey, you can go a tenth faster by braking a foot later in this corner.
I think Lisa Clark's going to improve. I'm looking at her car as she comes through 16, 17, now through 19. She'll rush down the hill into 20, and I would expect to see this lap quicker. But I think the coach, just like anything else, it has to fit with the student, right?
Yeah.
I mean, different levels, of driving will demand a different level of coaching, because the coach needs to understand that they're part psychiatrist, part psychologist, part driver coach, part inspiration. So they've got to help feed that information to the driver, and different drivers will accept it in different ways. That pairing, that teammate, if you will, is imperative that the personalities match.
Okay, we are starting to see some throwing of the ball overhand, if you will. The next car to cross the line will be Darren Bernstein.
Like
His last lap was 2:15.4. He improves to a 2:14.8, so still speed being found by some of the drivers out on track. The last time around, Lisa Clark did not improve, but Dan Cornish did. The gap between them is almost 7/10 in favor of Lisa, but the fact that Dan is going faster and Lisa isn't means that this isn't over yet.
Didn't we see this yesterday in qualifying?
Yeah, I believe we did.
She went out, put the lap down, came in, and he stayed out. The longer he stayed out, the quicker he went.
Yep.
And so she has a good car underneath her. I can look at it going around the corners. It seems stable. It's doing what she needs it to do. I don't know if she got caught up in traffic, because in watching it, the attitude of the car told me, hey, I'm getting better and better, watching it through the mid-speed sections of the racetrack. So I don't know if she made a mistake somewhere or not. Be interesting to see this next lap for both her and Dan Cornish.
Luis Perisquia right now is in the 8th position in qualifying. I'm surprised to see him a little bit further back down the charts, because he is normally a podium contender. So maybe he's having trouble just adapting to this different track condition. But Luis will definitely be there or thereabouts when we get to race conditions. Anthony DiCarlo and Jeff Nunberg are together on the timing charts and together on the racetrack. So that helps out when you've got that literal rabbit to chase right in front of you.
I always loved to have a rabbit in front of me, so give you something to kind of grab hold to and pull yourself forward. But here's the other thing. You said as the drivers adapt to the racetrack. But remember, this is a team sport. We saw this yesterday, did we not?
We did. Lisa Clark into the pit lane. She did her fast lap. She did the next lap, which was not an improvement, and then decides to park it.
Deja vu all over again.
Well, she's hoping so, because
Yes,
she got a nice
exactly.
pole award and a nice bonus point for the pole. Dan Cornish is continuing on his next lap, though. Let's see if he can improve. The target time is 2 minutes 12.801. What can Dan Cornish, the local man, do? He goes to pole position. So race winner from yesterday, 2:12.405. Lisa might be wishing that she stayed out.
And a massive improvement. It was
Massive.
about 6/10 of a second gap before. Now he's almost 4/10 to the good.
And here's Darren Bernstein across the line. Can he bump Lisa Clark down another spot? No, but he does improve his time as well.
And
Good
I thought,
effort from Darren.
I thought for a moment maybe they would just come in and change pressures on Lisa's car, but
Not
she
that
doesn't have
time.
time to get back out and get to the line and start another lap.
We have a minute and a half near enough left in this qualifying session. Can Jeff Nunberg better his time? The last time around was a 2:17.361 for Jeff. We're looking for a time of 2:12.4 now as the best lap time. Great lap from Jeff Nunberg, 2:14.7. So he's in the ballpark now too.
Yeah, I really liked his entry into turn 20. You watch the glowing brake rotors to see if you can see the same thing on other cars in these corners. I watched the rotors turn bright red in a straight line, and as he turned in for the corner and began to add more steering, he exchanged cornering capability for braking. The rotors began to fade back to black, and that just tells me he's got that good feel of blending his hands with his feet, working together, getting the most out of that Pirelli tire.
Braking in a straight line, turning when you need to turn, that's the quickest way through. We had no improvement from Neil Langberg, but it was a better lap from Luis Perisquia. So the two of them now running around together on the track. I think Luis actually held up Neil in that situation.
But getting back to something that I was trying to get to before we saw Lisa come in the pits, you talked about drivers adapting to the racetrack. You know who needs to adapt to the racetrack? The engineers.
Yes.
This is brand new for them. This is the first time out in this kind of weather, and these teams that are running cars in multiple classes will take information. The engineers needed to make a guess this morning. What kind of grip level do I have in the track? What's the track temperature? They knew that. They knew the ambient, and they needed to guess what kind of changes they needed to make to the car, whether they were going to change suspension setups, whether they were going to simply do it with tire pressures. So they've made the guess. They now have some data to work with, it'll be interesting to see how these teams with multiple cars adapt as we move through the qualifying sessions.
Checkered flag is out. Dana Goodwin will be the first car to see it as he comes across the line, was in the 7th place, moves up to 5th. Good lap from Dana. He found 2 seconds on that lap.
You know what I'm seeing is that it is taking a while to get the car good. Several drivers now have gotten their fast lap on the last lap. So it's one of those deals that these cool conditions, it's taken a while to get temperature and pressure. And we talk about that all the time. The temperature helps, makes the rubber a little bit softer, gives it grip. The temperature also raises the pressure in the tire. That gives the car stability. It increases the spring rate of the sidewall of the tire. And it takes a while to get that in these cool conditions. The challenge is really for the engineer to go, what pressure do I start with today to get the most out of both temperature and pressure? You want them to peak at the same time, and the driver will have that lap or two to get the job done.
And we've got some teams running in this championship representing various dealerships, but the teams have the experience of, well, winning major endurance races. Look at Risi, look at Scuderia Corse. Well, Ferrari Beverly Hills has Scuderia Corse running their efforts. That's one of the best teams in the world in a Ferrari.
In the NFL, when you play another team that's had the same coach for the last 10 years, the book that you have on that competitor is thick, right? And so these teams that have been in Ferrari Challenge competition know this racetrack, know the car, know the tire. Their book is thick. You can have the best team in the world come in first weekend. They don't have a lot of historical information to work with. So experience, just like in anything, right? I mean, it's going to pay.
It pays off in dividends, and experience, especially when you're a local. Well, it's working so far for Dan Cornish.
Yeah.
Pole position for Ferrari of Austin.
Yeah, but he's, you know, we talked about drivers from the local area going and jet skiing over the last couple of days.
Joe Rubo.
That's not going to happen today. Joe Rubo's not going to be in the lake today. I think it's a little cool to be on a jet ski.
I mean, you're talking about rain coming. It very well could be in a lake, but just not intentionally.
I really think Dan Cornish had it right yesterday. I believe in his winning interview, he said tequila and barbecue is how he was going to celebrate. That might be the thing to do at the end of the day today as well.
Yeah, we'll have to get Amanda to follow up with him and find out just where he went last night, because clearly it worked. Whatever he ate and drank, it worked.
I want some.
Found some extra speed out there on the racetrack. So Dane Cornish will start ahead of Lisa Clark for today's race. The roles are reversed, but Lisa has to know, hey, he did it yesterday from P2. I can do it today from P2.
It's completely doable. And to some extent, we're going to have to see how they line up. And because remember, AM lines up at the back of Coppa Shell, and Dan may be on pole, but he could find himself outside. We have to see the number of competitors that are going to run today in Coppa Shell, whether he's inside or outside. And if she is outside on driver's right going into turn one, it's really not a bad place to be. If you can hold the position as you head down the hill into turn two, you may have an advantage going into the S's. This thing is far from over. It's why we race, right?
Exactly. We don't hand out the championship points at the end of round one qualifying. You do it at the end of the season in Italy. Let's not forget, this is a championship that people all over the world want to participate in. And Brian, we talk to race car drivers from Europe every day. I mean, let's be honest, every day.
Absolutely.
People want to race in North America because we've got the best tracks. They might have ones with more history, but we've got the ones that people think about, dream about, race on the simulators.
And Ferrari Challenge is racing at those racetracks,
Exactly.
the ones that you want to run on. I think about, you were talking about the end of the season. We go to Road America and Sonoma and then to Italy, and it's like, as you guys have said, wine and cheese and then to Italy for good Italian
pizza.
food, But they are the tracks they want to run on. Whether it's here at Cota, Road America gets high praise from the European contingents. They say it reminds them a lot of Nürburgring and stuff like that, even though it's considerably shorter. But it's what makes this series so great. Qualifying is done, and I think we're going to see that smile on Dan Cornish's face just like we saw yesterday.
Yep, Dan Cornish is our pole sitter by 0.3 over Lisa Clark. Then Darren Bernstein following up his wonderful performance in yesterday's race. He will start third. Jeff Nunberg in fourth, followed by Dana Goodwin, Anthony DiCarlo, Neil Langberg, and Luis Peruzquia. We did not see a time from David Williams. So we have these 8 cars in their qualifying order for the Coppa Shell&AM class. Up next, we are going to have Coppa Shell going for the overall pole position for race number 4 in this championship season. But before we send them out for the green flag, we do need to hear from our pole sitter. And do you have any guesses, Brian, as to where he went for dinner? He said good barbecue.
I could name some restaurants, but I won't.
All right, let's find out. Amanda, you'll get the answer for us.
Oh, I already have the update on that one, of course. And I asked him where he went for barbecue and tequila. He said, actually, I just went right to bed. And I would say that sleep led here to a great performance here, picking up the first pole of your career. Dan, you elected to stay out there another lap. Tell us about setting the pole and where you found the performance on track and getting those tires up to temperature.
I just worked hard and just really pushing hard to get the tires up, and I finally felt the grip on the last lap, and that's when I could start to push. But it took a while, much longer than I've ever had before to put the temperature in the tires. So,
if these are the conditions we're going to see in the race, what can you use in qualifying to apply for that?
Just that the wind is also a little tricky. I felt the car move a little bit with the wind, so but the track has plenty of grip once the tires are up.
Congratulations. We'll see you this afternoon.
So thank you.
Straight to bed. That is the key to success for just about everything in life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really what you should do.
Yeah.
What did you do last night?
Basically straight to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well, we already have a minute and a half elapsed of this qualifying session for Coppa Shell, and there is traffic. But the good news for yesterday's pole sitter and championship leader, Cyril Choksi, he has none of that out his windshield. Clear sailing ahead for the man in the blue Ferrari of Denver, as he gets the catbird seat for qualifying. No excuses of traffic on this one. 3.4 miles. If you come across another car, they've done something really wrong to get in that position.
Yeah, and it's exactly where you want to be, like you said, but you also want to kind of keep an eye on that rear-facing camera. You see it right there in John Biskup's car. Almost an iPad-sized rear-facing camera, and it is so advantageous. You can just do that quick little glance down, see it, and react so much better than actual glass hanging there. It's technology that's been around for a while. Other teams have used it in the past, and it's now found its way throughout the motorsports industry, especially in sedan and even GTP-type cars, prototypes, gives you that visibility. But for Cyril Choksi, he wants to keep an eye on who's behind him because he doesn't want to lose that kind of pole position that he has right now. He wants to maintain the clean racetrack in front of him, but he doesn't want to hurry too much and make a mistake. But he doesn't want to let somebody by right now either because he wants to be able to go out there and do that clean lap.
It is Cyril Choksi, followed by Jan Bernier and then John Viskup. So we've got 3 cars line astern starting their fast lap with 12 minutes to go already. 12 minutes, that's what happens when you've got such a long racetrack for these competitors. But Cyril, who got the pole yesterday, he's got the benefit of the confidence of, I know how to do this. I've now gotten 2 poles at Cota. This place, it likes me.
Yeah, let's make it 3.
Yeah.
And for Jan Bernier, who's behind him, he should be thinking, I probably need to stay with that car in front of me because, again, you just said it, he has 2 poles here. See if I can learn something a little bit. But it looks like Cyril now has decided, okay, it's go time. I'm starting to get some grip. So he's turned up the heat a little bit more than Bernier has.
For Cyril Choksi, his coach would be Robbie Foley, a factory BMW driver of North America. But for Jan Bernier, it's Mr. Ian James, a guy who's very accomplished at winning major endurance races in North America, as well as championships. Been working with Jan for a few years now. So that's a good relationship that they've developed. They know each other. And Ian can say to Jan, keep Cyril in sight, but don't do anything you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, Ian is so good. From a driving standpoint, a team management standpoint, a coaching standpoint. Known him for a long, long time, always called him at the behest of Calvin Fish, the young Englishman Ian James. But I've known him for a long time, so he can't be the young Englishman Ian James anymore, so we'll just call him Ian James.
Ian James sounds good. Well, Cameron Root is young. Cameron Root, a fairly young man who made his debut at Homestead, and on his debut weekend, won the race. So
he was impressive. He was impressive here yesterday with his car control and his ability to survive some of the places that he threw that Ferrari into. Do you remember the huge moment he had in the S's? he is certainly not shy about trying to wring the most out of that Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo. And I thought he was going to get bitten a couple of times yesterday.
Yep, but he was good, and now it's Cyril Choksi who leads him by a single point in the Coppa Shell category. So what is our championship leader feeling right now, Amanda?
Well, Cyril was all smiles here this morning ahead of the qualifying, was talking to him just about what it's going to take to get to the place where they can start setting these qualifying laps. He thinks it's going to be about 3 or 4 laps in, and you guys were just having a discussion about Cameron Root and the debut weekend that he had, but when you look at conditions like this, does it favor drivers with more experience?
I would think so.
Yeah, because you have a very different session, right? You've got to go out in the beginning and be very cool, calm, slow, build up, and then you've got to read the car and go, okay, now it's go time, and flip the switch. And so that experience, I think, helps. The inexperience of it, you can get in a hurry too quickly. We were talking about this when the AMs were out, and if you make a mistake on those cold tires, spin and ruin the tire, then the tire that you're going to be running in the race is going to be less than ideal. So, yeah, I think it does favor the experience.
Yeah. And also to know that the track will come to you, which is something that people with no experience don't really seem to grasp.
I mean, I think motorsports is about patience, and it seems so strange to say that because you're hurtling along in between 165, 170 miles an hour as you get here to turn 12, and you're thinking, you can't be patient, you got to be in a hurry. Well, you can't be in a hurry. I always tell young drivers, you work the same speed in the cockpit, whether the car is going 100 miles an hour or 200 miles an hour. It needs to be smooth, measured, calm.
A guy who doesn't have much experience but was very impressive in yesterday's race is David Veronin. He came into this weekend not really in the championship talk, and all of a sudden after his second place finish, he started off with a 4th in the first round at Homestead. He's now somebody that we're going to have to watch for the remainder of the season, as off on driver's right. What car was that? Didn't catch the number. 135? 195, I believe it was. So that would be Paul Lynn, who just had a moment. Paul, racing for Ferrari of Newport Beach, was 17th in yesterday's race. But Cyril is on another flyer. We do still need more speed out of this car. His lap time the last time around, not good enough to beat the lap time from our local man, Dan Cornish.
I was going to say, he's not on overall pole yet. Now he is.
There we go.
And that's what I expected. Look how long it took before we started to get representative lap times.
And Cyril only held that honor for a matter of seconds because the third car in line, John Viscup, that's car number 190 for Boardwalk Ferrari, he now has provisional pole.
So think about where he is. He's Viscup third in the line there. He's got a car in front of him that he can utilize to help pull him down the straightaway and take advantage of the draft a little bit. I'm going to think that Choksi's going to go even quicker on this lap, a methodical build to the ultimate lap time that he's looking for, but still a great job by John Viscup. And if he can take advantage of Jan Bernier in front of him again down the long straightaway, he can gain time once again, utilizing the draft to help that Ferrari cut through the air.
Very true, and that's an advantage that Cyril doesn't have afforded to him right now with the advantage that he has of clear track. But who goes to the top? Yesterday's race winner, car number 197, Gray Favre. That's a very impressive lap from Gray early on. He didn't qualify particularly well yesterday. I mean, he won the race, so ultimately he's got that advantage. But Gray missed the Homestead races. He needs every point he can get if he wants to put himself into this championship conversation.
Pole, fast lap, race win would be good. Oh, a little twitch there as he turned into turn 3. Now you got to control it through here. Ultimately, Shay, what I think this is a 7-minute qualifying session.
Yeah.
It took that long to start to get tires, and now it's go time. It's time to flip the switch and get the most out of the Ferrari power plant behind you and the Pirelli tires underneath you.
At the most 4 flying laps in a 7-minute period, depending on where you were on track when that began. Now, one driver that I'm watching sort of out of the corner of my eye is Frank Szczesniak, because yesterday, car number 122 did not qualify well. Well, he did qualify well, and then due to a technical infraction was sent to the back of the grid. He spent the entire race battling up through the Coppa Shell&AM cars, trying to make it to the tail end of the Coppa Shell class. Frank is a championship contender. He got trophies from Homestead, multiple trophies. He was not happy with yesterday's race. He wants to set it right now in qualifying.
And look at everything's changing up front. The times are starting to roll through and changing a little bit. Choksi quicker, but not fast enough. It's still Favre up front. This is going to change, I think, before the end of the qualifying session. 5 minutes to go, Shay.
We've got Mike Luley coming through the final turn now, just ahead of Cameron Root, slightly stifling him through the exit, but helping him up the front straight, giving him a tow. Root goes to pole position, and this lap is going to be even faster if he can get around Luley going into turn 1. It looks like he backed off after finding out, oh, wait, you're P1.
Well,
Okay.
and I think, too, he probably realizes, hey, this lap is toast anyway, right?
Yep.
You know, so I'm going to let it go. The other thing that you're talking to your coach about right now is you're running out of time. You're going to get 1, maybe 2 more time laps. Are you getting a suggestion about what you could potentially do with your traction control? How can I adjust it? How can I change it? And it changed again. The order changed again.
Gray Favre to the top, 2:10.097. That means he is 1.3 seconds clear of the time that Cameron Root just set. All right, Surreal, you're up. What can you do?
Yeah.
John Viscup, 2 cars further behind him. What can you do?
What are you going to do with your ABS settings? What are you going to do with your traction control settings? Now that you've got temperature, you're going to turn the traction control down just a little bit. Have it interrupt just a little bit less so the car's a little freer coming off in the corner. Give it a little more room to run, so to speak. You got to make those changes. You got to make those adjustments. Gray obviously did.
Yes. Well, he's got Johnny Bronze in his ears.
Yeah, Johnny
He's,
Bronze.
Johnny
that's right.
O'Connell, his coach, Le Mans winner, everything winner, to be perfectly honest. Ray Acosta is on a flying lap now for the first time. His warm-up laps were a little bit off the pace, so let's see how far can Ray Acosta jump. He's 8th now. That was a good lap from
Boom.
Ray, representing the collection. And here comes Surreal, finally out of turn 19, getting ready for turn 20. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him. Can he utilize it? Can he use the draft of the car ahead to try and pull him up the charts a little bit? Crosses the line up to 2nd. He does a 2:10.876.
Really nice turn 20 there. He was patient, turned in a little bit later like he needed to, didn't rush it, get in there early, and then have to compromise the exit. He's doing that everywhere around the racetrack. The question is, with 3 minutes to go, how much Pirelli rubber does he still have underneath him? How much does he have left in himself? How much is left in the adjustments that he can make for the car?
Cameron Root is on a cooldown lap. We established that after he caught Mike Luley into turn 1, and yes, he is pitting. So Cameron Root will start no better than 3rd. No better than 3rd is a pretty darn good starting spot.
Yeah. But it was interesting. I was thinking that he may just let everybody go and try to rocket out a 19 on the last lap and then see if he could set one more.
That's what I was thinking too. Is Gray Favre going to do that? Yes, he is. He stays out, stays wide through turn 20, kisses the apex, runs barely over the rumble strips, and crosses the line to start one last flying lap. 2 minutes and 10 seconds left on the clock when he crossed the line. He could potentially get around for one more, depending on how fast he hustles, but he would have to match his personal best time.
It was interesting, though. You called it. He was right on the apex at 20, but he didn't use much road at the exit of the corner.
Nope.
There was more available, and that was somewhat surprising to me.
David Veronin has not yet set a fast lap. He's just come back out of the pit lane. I wonder if maybe he had a tire pressure adjustment. He is currently P18, so expecting to see a bit more out of the Migway car. That's 177 as Paul Lynn is coming through the final corner now. Paul is qualified 17th. What can he do? That was not an improvement on his best lap.
Ray Acosta digging, seeing what he can come up with. Can he improve his time?
Currently down in P13, Ray comes out of the final turn and crosses the line. Not an improvement for him. He does get one more lap, though. Sorry, Brian.
He was pushing through 16, 17, then through 19 and down the hill. I thought we might see a little bit more. That could be indicative of we're running out of the go fast that's in that Pirelli tire for qualifying.
Or maybe the Go Fast juice. Maybe they only fueled the car for a few laps, as David Veronin now on his flying lap. This will be a one and done for Veronin in essence after coming back down the pit lane for a brief adjustment as Bruce Cleveland jumps up to 3rd. What a lap for the Ferrari of Silicon Valley driver. 1.2 seconds off pole right now, but P3, he'll be thrilled with that.
Interesting to see what Veronin's lap time is going to be this next time around, because he's on it right now and the car looked solid underneath him well faster than I had seen it earlier. So it'll be interesting to see what this last lap for him is.
Bruce Cleveland with the Superman liveried car, if you will, red and blue. Looks good out there, looks fast, and Bruce has got to be feeling confident, given that he was able to set a lap time. Pretty sure that's the best time he's done all weekend. All right, here's David Veronin through turn 15.
Conditions should be good once you get temperature in the tires. It's just, again, experience plays so much in it. You've got to have some faith and some belief in what you know is out there and be willing to go get it, because it is somewhat of a leap of faith. You're driving a car that one lap has no grip. All of a sudden, when it has it, you've got to be ready to pounce and use what's available to you.
David Veronin on his flying lap. Let's see if he can trouble the top of the charts, which, by the way, was better last time around by Gray Favre. 209.547 was the time. Veronin up to third with a great lap, 211.113. So it sounds like a big gap between the top three, but it's really not once you start looking further down the charts.
And Veronin, I knew, was on a lap. All of a sudden, you could just see the car come alive, and I was like, this is going to be a good one. And he went from 18th up to third.
Wow. Here's Frank Szczesniak getting ready to cross the line. What can the driver for Ferrari of Austin do? Does he improve? He improves his time, but not his position. So a good lap for Frank. He'll start P11. Much better than what he's had for a starting position in yesterday's race.
I'm excited to see the start. Let's just go ahead and roll them out, and let's go to the start of this race. Because you look at all the different flavors up front, right? I mean, you look back there in fifth, Cameron Root, who was incredibly excitable yesterday, right?
Oh, yes.
And willing to lay it all on the line. Cyril Choksi seems to be a little bit more cerebral, the chess player, if you will, not the gunslinger. And just these different personalities up there, and it's all going to come out in 30 minutes of competition later this afternoon. And the other thing is, we have no idea what the weather's going to be like.
No, exactly. That's going to throw the biggest cat amongst the pigeons for all of this. We've got a really good effort as well from Eric Marston, car number 126. We welcome him back to the championship. Been a little while since we've seen Eric, so we're glad to see him back on the circuit with the red Ferrari, of course, this weekend. But P6, he'll be happy with that for that qualifying effort. But again, Gray Favre, starting today, where he finished yesterday, he'll be thrilled with that result and the bonus point for the pole position on top of the points that he accrued yesterday with the win and the fastest lap. That's 17 points he's gained this weekend so far.
So he can gain another 15 if he wins, and he can
And
gain another one if he has the fast lap. And as you talked about, he needs to get every point that he can. Every driver obviously does, but when you miss a race,
exactly. That's what makes the biggest difference. And coming in and chasing drivers like Cameron Root, like Cyril Choksi, all of a sudden you find yourself in a deficit. Well, Gray Favre is doing everything he needs to eliminate that deficit. Not shrink it, eliminate it.
yeah, I mean, he's not a big fish in a little pond.
No.
Right? I mean, the competition that he has in his lake that he's in has some big teeth as well, and they know how to
Piranhas.
use them. Exactly. So it's not going to be an easy chore qualifying. It looked like he had this massive lap that he did, but everybody else kind of answered back, and it's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it.
Me
They
too.
did a great job yesterday too. The racing was fantastic.
Yeah, and Gray Favre getting to the lead and then holding on to it, that was the most impressive part, because it's not like he took the pole position and then just ran away from everyone. No, it was a hard-fought battle. It was a bit of a rodeo, I guess you could say.
It was a
since
bit of a
we're in
rodeo.
Texas.
Turn one, lap one was a bit of a rodeo.
What do they call it? Mutton busting, when you try and tackle the sheep?
Yeah, it was more calf wrestling at the rodeos here
Calf
when I was
wrestling.
growing up. We didn't have a lot of sheep in Texas. We had more cows.
That's fair. Big hug for Gray Favre from his team, as once again he has delivered on everything that they have asked of him. The car which bears his name and his father's name over the door. I fully appreciate that. Racing is a family experience, and it is demonstrated no more than what we're seeing with the Favres. Brad Favre going up for qualifying up next. So Brad, congratulations, your boy did it again. I'm sure he's
So we're
strapped
going to
into
interview
his car.
Brad like we did yesterday, or we're going to actually interview Gray?
I think we're going to interview Gray because Brad's about to take the green flag here in about 25 minutes for his qualifying session. Before we get to that, we are going to have the F1 car back out on the circuit for some more laps of that wonderful screaming V12 and some 333 SPs as well. But before they take to the circuit, let's hear from our pole sitter, overall pole sitter for race number 4, Gray Favres with Amanda.
Gray, you continue to pick up some hardware here this weekend. This is the pole position plate. You will see the outline of Cota there to document this moment. You set that lap on the 6th lap. Talk about the evolution of the Ferrari through that session.
Yeah, I mean, tires felt really cold at the start, really having trouble getting the car to stop in these conditions. So really needed to build up the heat and get it going, and then the car really came in a lot different than the previous sessions.
He's happy with that. He's got another trophy that he wasn't expecting on the weekend. I think he was genuinely taken back by the pole award.
You know what else he's got? Let's say that we don't get rain. What he's got is experience. He knows how long it takes the car to come in. So if the weather's the same, he's sitting up there on the pole going, I know what I have to work with. I have to duplicate it in the race. But Cyril Choksi right there beside him, he's going to give him a run for the money.
Second row, David Veronin and Bruce Cleveland. Great qualifying efforts by both of those guys. Cameron Root and Eric Marston on the third row. That's going to be fun. John Viscup, Ray Acosta, row number 4. And then row 5, Lance Colley and Jan Bernier. Back another position, Frank Sesniak with Mike Luley. We've got Matt Dalton in 13th with Tor Haugen in 14th. It's Robert McWilliams 15th, Steve Check in 16th. And then rounding out the grid, Roger Monteforte and Paul Lynn. So really good, clean qualifying. Once again, nobody's got a damaged car to fix. That's the most important thing for the teams in between these sessions. And in between the sessions, don't go anywhere. I teased it. The Formula One car is about to come out and play around for about 20 minutes time. And then we're going to have even more qualifying for Trofeo Pirelli.